The Roman Empire, at its greatest extent, encompassed a large part of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, which made it a multi-ethnic empire and one of the longest-lasting empires in history. During the imperial era, a cosmopolitan branch bustled with people from all over the known world, while the Roman legions were filled with men born thousands of miles away. Bearing all this in mind, one wonders what the Romans thought about different races or ethnicities. First and foremost, it is important to point out that we are starting with a question that requires subtlety, because when we ask what the Romans thought about race, we do so based on the modern sense of this term. Nowadays, race is generally equated with physical appearance, and particularly with skin color. Humans have always had ways of distinguishing between in-groups and out-groups, and our way of doing so has its roots in the 16th to 18th centuries with the Age of Exploration, the conquest of the New World, and the transatlantic slave trade. So, what was the concept of race in ancient Rome? If you were to ask a Roman to guess someone's race, they would take many things into account: who their ancestors were, what their mother tongue was, how they dressed, or what their manners were. Based on these answers, the average Roman could place them in different racial categories. This person is Carthaginian, or Gaul, German, or Hispanic, Egyptian, etc. Each of these had its own set of cultural stereotypes, which could be both positive and negative. While it is impossible to discern how frequent such ideas were among the general public, we can get an idea by looking at some texts from the time. Julius Caesar, for example, described the Gauls as superstitious, independent, lazy, and violent. As for the Carthaginians, who are considered a civilized people, it was certainly said that they were intelligent but treacherous. On the other hand, regarding the Germans, Tacitus highlighted both admirable and deplorable aspects. He textually said, "They can exert their strength only through violent effort. Their large and strong bodies serve only for the first impetus in combat. They do not have the same endurance in labor and toil. They do not endure heat and thirst, but they bear hunger and cold well, as accustomed to the experience and inclemency of such soil and sky." The truth is that for the Romans, the pale-skinned barbarian from the far north was just as exotic as the dark-skinned Ethiopian from the far south or the Indian from the far west. All were grouped as exotics who had strange or mystical customs. One of the most prolific authors who wrote about foreign cultures was Pliny the Elder. Pliny declares that Ethiopia extends vastly below the Sahara, with different tribes inhabiting different parts of the land, and his descriptions of many of these tribes are somewhat imaginative. For example, he said, "They claim that in the innermost part towards the east, there are peoples who have no nose and their entire face is equally flat. Others are lacking an upper lip, and others without a tongue. Moreover, some of them have their mouths fused, and without a nose, they breathe through a single orifice and sip their drink with oat straws. Some, instead of language, use signs. For some, the use of fire was unknown, prior to the reign of Ptolemy Latinus and of Egypt. And the truth is that these descriptions of Pliny become increasingly strange. The troglodytes dig caves. These are their houses. They eat snake meat and use a whistle, not voice, to the point that they lack the ability to communicate with words. The Garamantes, lacking marriage, live without fixed rules with women. The Agilas worship only infernal spirits. The Gamphasontes, naked and ignorant of war, have no dealings with any stranger. It is said that others lack heads and have their mouths and eyes placed on their chest. The satyrs, apart from their human figure, have no human custom. Surely, if we had more records from the past, we would be surprised by the great variety of descriptions of people of different races throughout the world. And given such variety, it should come as no surprise that there was an attempt to categorize the races of the world. To delve further into this aspect, the works of Vitruvius are ideal, and in his book, Architecture 6, he seeks to relate everything to climate. In places where the sun heats moderately, bodies possess a temperate temperature. In places that are very hot, due to their proximity to the course of the sun, it with its scorching rays absorbs their moisture. On the contrary, in cold regions very distant from midday, moisture is not completely absorbed, and due to the scant heat of the sun's rays and also the cool air, they are more corpulent, and even the tone of their voice is deeper. Hence, the peoples who inhabit the northern regions offer in their outward appearance a corpulent build, a light skin tone, blonde and straight hair, and blue eyes. However, the peoples who inhabit the vicinity of the southern part and under the orbit of the sun, due to the force of the sun's rays, are of small stature, dark-skinned, with curly hair and black eyes. Precisely because of the poverty of their blood, they are cowardly men for war, but they withstand heat and fever without any problem, since their limbs are nourished by heat. Therefore, people who have been born in northern countries are cowardly and weak to withstand fever. In contrast, they bravely endure wars. However, theories about racial origins could justify other theories of racial superiority. Vitruvius himself, for example, uses the traits of people in climatic extremes to argue that Rome's position in the center ensured superior traits. Indeed, the natural distribution of the world has shown that all nations differ by their own particular and personal character. The Roman people occupy the intermediate space of the entire globe and of the regions situated in the center of the world in Italy. Its peoples are perfectly proportioned from this dual point of view. That is, they are strong physically and mentally, just as the planet Jupiter, which travels its perihelion very moderately, maintaining an equidistance between the heat of Mars and the icy Saturn. In the same way, Italy offers magnificent qualities and an improved temperament, because being situated between the north and the south, it enjoys a balanced mixture of both temperaments. With its prudent projects, it surpasses the strength of the barbarian peoples, and with its vigorous weapons, the cunning skill of the southern peoples. Divine Mind placed the capital of the Roman Pole in an excellent and temperate region so that it would take over the whole world. So with all these ideas about race in the air, how did ordinary people act in this regard? Well, as some might imagine, it could certainly be the cause of some xenophobia, and the truth is that we have several references of Romans who were somewhat annoyed by foreign accents, their clothes, and their manners. Cicero himself complained several times about those foreigners who wore trousers in the city. In this regard, he said, "Do you not see that all these nations have an innate hatred and wage incessant war against the name of the Roman people? Do you think that with their military cloaks and breeches they come to us with a humble and submissive spirit? Nothing could be further from the truth. On the contrary, they stroll very lively with their heads held high everywhere, preferring threatening expressions and terrorizing men with a barbaric and foreign language." Such was the rejection of the Romans to the use of trousers that laws were even passed against their use in the city. For example, in late antiquity, during the period of the Great Migration, there was an even greater influx of Germanic immigrants, which provoked much rejection in the local population. The Theodosian Code, for example, contained laws against trousers, long hair, and certain types of footwear that were associated with the Goths. However, even small differences like this could increase tensions. For example, when the Goths began to arrive in Roman populations in the 5th century AD, some Romans reacted by forming lynch mobs to attack the Goths within their own ranks. However, the Roman administration did not care much about ethnic origin, but rather about their behavior. Speaking Latin or Greek was a great start to being considered among the civilized, and if, in addition, the subject adopted Roman customs, they could fit into society much more easily, regardless of their ethnic origin. Therefore, racial ideas were more linked to culture than to the appearance that one might have. Regarding this map showing how the emperors themselves came from lands all over the empire is interesting. However, racial tensions were more pronounced in some places and not so much in others. An example of a cosmopolitan city of the time is Alexandria, where up to 15 different languages were spoken. In conclusion, while it is true that the Romans had an ethnocentric view, the truth is that they gave more importance to the behavior of the individual and whether they were Romanized than to their ethnic origins. If you liked this video, you can leave a like to let me know. And if you are not subscribed, I recommend you do so, as I will continue uploading content like this. Thank you to all the members who support this channel and who make it possible for me to continue. See you in the next video.